Okay, I'm making this video just to talk about some of the things that for my blog, and so the first thing I have is the shirt, and so it's like "Live for Christ," and then on the back it has Matthew 5:18. It should, or 5:8, Matthew 5:8, and that says Matthew 5:8 is the pure of heart will see God. So if you have a pure heart, you'll see God, and so um, I think that happened to me once. I had a pure heart and saw God, and well, it was actually just a vision, but anyway, I believe that the supernatural is real. So the supernatural, I mean, by the supernatural I mean like how they used to believe atoms were hard little rocks that bumped into each other and all that, but then we found out that the atoms are actually or have orbitals that have a uh, like balloons connected to each other, and they phase in and out of existence depending on their field. Like it's more fuzzy over here and it's thicker over here, and then probabilities and all that. And so they had quantum chemistry in the 50s where that they were able to use math equations to draw to plot out atoms. So they had quantum chemistry in the 50s. But anyway, the supernatural would be time travel. So I mean, that's the only place you can go to when it comes to supernatural, is that time travel is. I mean, they've done experiments where particles travel back in time and then go back forward in time and then change things. And so the supernatural would be just like our future selves sending signals into the past to change things. Because like the I made a list, and so like the first thing is supernatural. And so supernatural is like it has to do with the second point, which is reality changes. So I've had experience where reality just was different from the way I remembered it to be. So like there was a video that used to be there, and it had this it was a video, and stuff happened in the video. And so when it changed, all the stuff was different. And so that could be someone sending signals back in time from the future to change what happens right now. And so like that changed something, whereas like now I'm in a different place, and like the reality I'm in is different from the reality that I used to remember that it was that way. And so the third thing is that everything is temporary. So the thing is like all the things that happen in your brain, it's just atoms, charged ions, negative and positive ions that are charged, that are released, and then they float around each other, and then they create movement inside the brain, and then that changes where that changes where the neurons grow to change where the ions start to go. So the thing is, it's a dynamic, but the thing is that it's still temporary. It's still I mean, I used to be a fetus. You know, like everyone used to be a fetus, and they grew from this tiny little egg into a fetus, into a baby, into a human being. And so the brain kept changing, and the ions that flowed through the system changes all the time about how the ions flows through it. And so because everything changes all the time, um, well, it kind of complicates things about how the self exists and how you exist, because if the people from the future can change the past, then the people from the future can also record the past, and they can also like bring take all of the past that there was and put it into their supercomputer, and that's the fourth thing is that the internet is involved, and the internet is involved because things just happen on the internet. So the thing is like the internet is sort of like a brain. It forms connections, you know. So anything that forms connections, like the brain, it has the energy is flowing through the system. And if the energy is flowing through the system in the right way, it changes the system depending on how the energy is flowing. And so that means that the internet is, I mean, these have bots that are like connecting things together and trying to find out what goes together and what doesn't go together. And so the thing is that eventually there's I think there's mathematics that see where things are bouncing off of each other. Like they have this like camera that can see. It looks at a potato chip bag, aluminum potato chip bag, and it sees the pictures scatters off the wall of a picture, and they can reconstruct a picture from the scatterings of a potato chip bag through a window from the outside. And so the thing is that they have mathematics that can reconstruct things. And so because they have mathematics that can reconstruct things, that they're trying to become more accurate, like we're actually mapping ourselves and we're changing reality at the same time. So the way the internet changes how things are get connected, that changes how I behave, that changes how you behave, it changes your search results. So if I see a search result that, and it has a list of a list of things on the side of YouTube that says, and depending on what you click on, it'll start saying, oh well, he was in this mood, and then it tries to track the mood over time, and that just and it fills in the gaps. So it's not necessarily the people from the future that have to do all the mapping. I mean, we're doing lots of the mapping right now, where to reconstruct everything, but with artificial intelligence, it has to map reality and then change reality and then see how that affects itself, because like for example, when a little kid is growing up from the ages of 5 to 7, they think differently than they do when they're 12 to 14. So the thing is that when they're mapping the map in their head, the energy that flows through the system is creating more abstraction, and so because it's creating more abstraction, it's getting a fuller picture of the entire emphasis of the world. So the thing is that I guess like just to go over the list before my time runs out. The supernatural is time travel. reality changes. Reality changes, like things in reality just change, and like they weren't that way before. Everything is temporary. So the thing is that you are just the energy that's flowing through the system of your brain, and and the energy flowing through the system changes, and then the energy changes, and then continuously changing the system and the energy. And the internet is practically doing the same thing, because Google is actually trying to build an artificial intelligence that gets you what you want. And in order to get what you want, it has to have a model of you. It has to try to have a perfect representation of who you are inside the system. And that means that it has to map reality. And so by mapping reality, it changes reality. And that overall that the internet is getting so huge and so big, eventually it's going to map out all of reality and all of history that ever happened. And then when you get quantum computers, the internet is going to use those quantum computers to create a perfect representation of who you are. And so the thing is that if we can create a perfect representation of everything that's ever happened, then that means that everyone could come back someday. So the thing is that it's hard to comprehend if you're thinking about it from like, oh, how can he's over here and I'm over here? How can that be how can that actually go together? Well, it can go together if you think about how waves on the ocean bounce off of each other. So a wave can continue to exist as long as it could bounce off a wall, it could bounce but it can't hit a shoreline. So you put a barrier right here and it bounces back. So the thing is that everything is contingent on the system, on energy flowing through the system. So the thing is that if we the ontology of that is like software. So it has to exist in some form of state that it can be because if I'm in a specific location and if I move over here, that doesn't change who I am. But if I move over here, that doesn't change who I am. So the thing is that what we're really doing is, or what it's really doing, is that it's moving the position of where you are when you die, or whenever you are, and it's moving the position into a simulation. And because it's moving you into a simulation, it hasn't really copied you. It's actually just like bounced your position into a new area where you continue to exist. And overall, the internet is going to get a lot smarter, and it's going to map out things, and it's going to start thinking for itself, and eventually we'll get a whole representation of all of history and all that, because we have to make sure that we get the right positions in order to put someone into a simulation, whereas that they actually exist for real and not just as a copy.